What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about Fortnite's new Spider-Man update. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, comment down below what you think of these changes, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolvedJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So the biggest and probably most impactful change in this update is going to be that the Spider-Man web shooters were added back into the loot pool, and this gives you the Spider-Man glove as a mobility item. We've had this many times throughout Fortnite's history in recent chapters, and then we've also had the grapple glove, which is like kind of the generic Fortnite version of this item. Ideally, when using this, you want to just swing from object to object kind of fluidly to travel around quickly. You want to be around several objects that you can connect to. And typically when I'm swinging around, I just tap the shoot button for like a limited amount of time to pull myself towards that object and like kind of do a flip. And if you do this continuously, you will have very quick, very fluid movement, and it will just get you around the map incredibly quickly. This is an item that is more of a travel mobility item than anything else. Like if you want to travel around the map quickly, rotate quickly, you know, travel around in the storm and look for sprites or something like that, that's where the web shooter is going to be most ideal. But trying to use this in a fight can be somewhat clunky, because if you shoot someone using these, they will fall to the ground and then the item will go on cooldown for, I believe, 15 seconds. They don't take fall damage using these mythic Spider-Man web shooters, so that's not a problem at least. But still, the fact that getting shot, you know, completely cancels out your mobility item and leaves you somewhat stranded in no man's land makes it not the greatest fighting mobility. And if you do have anybody using it around you, you know, trying to wait to shoot them until they are somewhat exposed in a vulnerable area can make them a pretty easy elimination, especially with how fast a lot of these, you know, mid-range weapons kill this season. When you get the web shooters, they are currently unlimited. I don't know if that's intentional or a bug. In the past, it was 80 uses, but right now, if you find a Spider-Man web shooter, it is unlimited amount of uses, which is really nice. And I'll have on screen now the only map I could find of the Spidey web shooter spawn locations. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I did go to some of these locations and the Spider-Man backpack was there. But you just go up to the Spider-Man backpack and open it to get the web shooters. They're not in the regular loot pool, like you're not going to get them from chests. So the only way to get them is from eliminating a player who has them, or by, you know, opening one of these Spider-Man backpacks. So solid mobility item, but not something that I see myself using too much just because of how good the shock rocks are, how good the overdrive nades are. I'm typically someone who really prioritizes fighting mobility, and I feel like in a fight those two choices are better. But if I was going to use one for just traveling, I definitely would rather use this over the 7 slider boots. So they're good, but just kind of fill a role that I typically don't need. The Spire AR was also added to the loot pool. This is kind of a strange addition. This is from chapter 6 season 3, and there weren't any stat changes with it from how it was last in the game. And in chapter 6 season 3, it was kind of the dominant AR. So I think a lot of people seeing this come to the game expect it to be one of the better weapons in the loot pool. And it's solid, but the fire rate is pretty slow. And when compared to the Ranger pistol, I feel like the Ranger pistol is just, it kills faster. It feels a lot more versatile. It feels a lot more just like, I don't know, if like less clunky. Like the Spire AR isn't the most clunky weapon ever, but it does feel more clunky than the Ranger pistol. So the fact that they didn't vault the Ranger pistol, I feel like the Ranger pistol is still going to be kind of the dominant medium to long range weapon, even with the Spire AR in the loot pool. The Spire AR does have a really large magazine at 50, but with how fast the Ranger pistol reloads, it's not like that's a huge deal. So it's solid, but not the best, and that's kind of how I feel about all the ARs at this point in time. Like both the Warforged AR and the Burst AR, with the recent buffs, they're good. You can certainly use them, and you're not at a massive disadvantage for using them, but I do feel like you are at a disadvantage using any of these ARs over the Ranger pistol. If I was to make a tier list today, I'd put the Ranger in S, and then I'd probably put the Warforged, the Burst, and the Spire AR all in A tier. They're solid, good weapons, but when you have something as insane as the Ranger pistol, it's, you know, an easy choice to make. Also, as far as accuracy goes, the Spire AR is, you know, pretty accurate for third-person weapons, but not as accurate as the Ranger pistol, especially when you're jumping around or flying through the air, which is something that happens incredibly frequently this season because of the shock rocks, because of the overdrive nades. There's a lot of fights that happen in air, and I feel like, again, the Ranger pistol just kind of takes the cake there. So I don't see the Spire AR being added, changing the meta too much, unless they, you know, nerf or remove the Ranger pistol. There were a few things they vaulted in this update. The green and blue rarities of the Chaos Exploder were removed. The business turret was removed, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to be happy to hear. And then apparently the mythic sniper was vaulted, from what I've been told. I didn't get any of the key cards to open the vaults today, but I was told that now when you open the keycard vaults, you get the 7 slider boot mythic versions as well, or instead of the sniper. So if you are someone who enjoys those boots, try to open the keycard vaults. And then even at Cluster Coast, I was told that it's not even a guaranteed legendary sniper anymore. You just get loot. So I'm not too sure why they vaulted the mythic heavy impact sniper, or if it was 100% vaulted, or, if my information was just bad, but it was from somebody who I trust. So I think the mythic sniper is currently out of the loot pool, which if you really liked sniping and if you really liked the 2x optic is unfortunate for you. The regular base version of the heavy impact sniper still is in the loot pool though. There also were some sprites added today. There's a few that got added and then removed, but the main ones that are still in the loot pool are going to be the Peely, the Llama, and the John Wick sprite. So the Peely sprite reveals nearby sprites. It will you'll see them through the wall essentially. And you can even see them on players' backs. As you level this up, it increases the range at which you will see sprite variants. I don't know if I misworded that, but it marks sprite variants for you. So you'll see different variant sprites through walls or on enemy players. You do reveal your own location for having this though. There will be basically a red circle that gets put on the map. If you see that red circle around you, that means there's somebody nearby or somebody in that area using the Peely sprite. So it kind of is a give and take. You can use this to get information on other players or to locate sprites if you are hunting for sprites, but you also give your own location away too. So I feel like that is a decent balance, but I could see a world in which the person using the Peely sprite has an advantage, especially if you are someone who plays aggressive and likes using mobility. I think the Peely sprite could be something that people use just to find other players more so than just the sprites. The Llama sprite has a chance to give you weapons when you open ammo boxes, and as you level the sprite up, you have a higher chance of getting a weapon when you open an ammo box. This one isn't really that great in my opinion, but maybe off spawn or if you're coming off a reboot, it would be ideal or, somewhat helpful. And then the John Wick sprite, you have to find this in the new Simpsons Reload map. So you have to go into Reload and play Reload to actually get the John Wick sprite, or just eliminate another player who has it in BR, obviously. And what this sprite does is it makes it to where when you knock an enemy player, you'll get a ping of nearby enemies from where that player was. So we've had this in the past with boons, and I believe even some exotic weapons where when you would knock somebody, you would get a scan in the area of other players. And so that's basically what the John Wick sprite does. The Lucky Locator Gizmo was added. This spawns a sprite chest for you that you have to go and open, and then it's guaranteed to have a sprite that you haven't extracted yet. You currently get one of these for mastering 50 sprites and kind of those reward pages. If you've already mastered over 50 sprites, you will get this when you get on the game. It's probably best to save this for when you're only missing, very few sprites, because I don't know how else we're going to be able to get this. So it is something of really high value. If you're missing all but one sprite, then that would be a good time to use the Lucky Locator Gizmo, especially towards the end of the season when the time is kind of running out to find the sprites. And then finally, there is a new Dark Voyager boss that will be marked on the map with a cube, and then he drops the Mythic Chaos Exploder AR when you eliminate him. So this boss seems to be marked, I think, for everybody on the map, or just a much larger distance than the bosses typically are. He didn't seem too hard to eliminate, but you get the Mythic Chaos Exploder, which is, a weapon that I don't really want to use, so I'm probably not going to be eliminating that boss, but the fact that it's marked for everybody means there probably will be a good amount of players going to that area. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.